Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Synergy Homeopathic monthly open forum training, where Maggie and I answer any questions you might have about the program. I usually try and show some feature and generally expand your knowledge of the program so you can work better. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I thought we would start, maybe today we could focus a little bit on filters, and all the places in the program that there are filters. And then how best you can use them and how they can help add another dimension to your analysis, whatever case or patient you might be working with. So the first place, since,
Sorry, Roopali, before you start, I was going to say we have one filter type question in already.
oh, great. Okay.
Say if we have a set of rubrics in the program,
Yeah.
how would we, for example, view only the remedies that correspond to column 5 of Yakir's botanical system?
Column 5 of Yakir. Okay. Um, so let's put some quick rubrics on the clipboard, and then I will show you how we can do that. So, and we'll put slightly bigger rubrics so that, I mean, all of column 5 is a lot of remedies, actually. Um, so I'm sure something or the other will come up. Um, okay, I think that's good. So here we go. So here is our kind of not super pointed repertorization. I've chosen deliberately some larger rubrics. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. So if you already see a column 5 remedy over here, and I'm just going to see if I have my chart here. Okay. So both Mikal and Dr. Rajan Shankaran use the Cronquist method of classification for plants. For everybody, for people in the group today who don't know, Mikal uses the Cronquist method, and so does Dr. Rajan. So, and I'm more familiar with Dr. Rajan's method, but I know that column 5 in the flowering plants in the angiosperms corresponds to the Rosidae subclass. So we are really looking for that. Now, if you see a remedy here from Mikal's column 5, you can go to it. So first of all, in order to do that, so I just applied a plant filter because obviously there's a whole bunch of remedies. And if we're only looking at column 5 for Mikal, then we're only looking at plant remedies, right? So I think it'll be hard to come up with a column 5 this way. So because if you did, what you would do is you would come up to the remedy and you would do a control click or a right click. So hold down the control key and then press your trackpad if you have an Apple computer, and a right click if you work on a PC. And so you would do this, and it brings up a little menu here, and then it says View Remedies Family. So when you click on that, it gives you all of the levels of the classification. So here you see Rosidae. So I could just click on this. Cronquist plants Rosidae is column 5. So I could click on this, and now this is filtered for column 5 remedies. So you can do this. If you see a column 5 remedy, you can just right click it and then say, show me the remedies family. It will show you all the different ways in which that family can be organized. You can scroll down to the one that you like, which is, so in this case, we went to Cronquist. I'm sure Mikal is in there as a possibility as well. And I clicked on Rosidae. And so you can see Anacardiaceae and all these other families are in here. I'm going to remove the filter. And the other way to do it is to just go to this filter button. So anywhere in the program that you see this sort of abacus type icon is a filter button. It's up here by global search. It's also in reference library and the repertory module. So for our purposes, we would go here. And I don't know what would come up if I said column 5. So I'm just going to say Rosidae. And here we go, Rosidae, right? That's the subclass, that's column 5. So I would apply that as a filter and you get that same set of remedies. We can also try, since I don't work with it, I don't know, but let me see. I think if I put in column, it's going to think of the columns in the periodic table. Yeah, column 5 will not bring it up. If I type Mikal, that won't bring it up either. So I think you have to know the actual subclasses in Mikal's classification as well. And so column 5 is the rosids. So you would have to type Rosidae and then bring it up that way. Does that help? So that's how you, those are the two ways you would bring up the column 5 remedies, Mikal's column 5. Okay, so I will keep the repertorization in case we need it for something else. And I want to start with the filter here. So you can see that there is a filter here. And then if I open one of the chapters, let's lay this on the side, you can see that there is also, excuse me, you can see that there is a filter inside the section and there is a filter in the repertory module outside of the individual section that we've opened. If you do anything inside the section, remember that it's temporary. It only applies to the section and for as long as you have that section open. So if I apply, and you can see that I don't have my remedies turned on. That's generally how I prefer to work because I can see more rubrics at a time. But let's say if I turn my remedies on, and again, I'm going to remind you that this is just a change now that I've made inside the chapter. It's not going to work when I open another chapter. You see, because the settings up here are permanent and the settings inside the chapter are temporary. So let's put that aside. So here now, let's say you're working on a case or you're studying and you're just either you're a student or even a practitioner and you're studying. And so this is great here. The filters here are great if you want to study either a remedy deeper or a group of remedies. So like a grouping or a kingdom, or you want to focus on a specific author. For example, you want to see what remedies Andre Sain has added to a particular remedy. And of course, I'm in the complete right now, so you would have to kind of know, if you're going to work by author, you have to know if those additions are available in that particular repertory. So I don't know if Andre Sain's additions are in the complete or not. But I've just picked him up randomly. And then you can also study by grade. You can filter by grade and say, what are the grade 3 remedies only in the mind chapter, and see which remedies most strongly show up for particular rubrics. So for example, if we were to do the same thing here, I could I don't know how relevant, how useful it would be to study the mind chapter only looking at column 5 remedies in the previous question, for example, because column 5 has a lot of remedies. So I don't know if it furthers someone's understanding to study such a large grouping. But if we were to say, just let's say this is one of the families in column 5, anacardiaceae. So let's say we choose anacardiaceae, and I will say apply. Um, and the mind chapter is a big chapter in the complete. It's one of the biggest chapters in any repertory, but in the complete more so. And we're asking it to limit by or filter by a group of remedies. And there's quite a few remedies in the anacardiaceae. So it's probably going to run for a little while. There we go. So now you can see if you were to, let's say you're studying anacardiaceae remedies or just that family, um, you can get all of the mind symptoms for that family. And let's say we were even to filter by grade, then you could see all of the grade 4 remedies in the anacardiaceae for the mind chapter. And it would give you a really strong understanding of the mind symptoms for that family. Um, so, I mean, I think this is useful no matter whether you're a student or a practitioner. It's a great way to crystallize your understanding of a particular remedy or a family. Um, and so, of course, and you can do that for specific remedies. If you're, for example, I like, here's another example that we could look at. And I don't know if this comes up, but let's type, there we go. So natrum remedies, natrum remedies, specifically natrum mur is a well-known polycrest. We use it for many, many things. And so if you want to enhance your understanding of these remedies, you could even understand what part of the mind section really comes from the natrum side of the remedy as opposed to the chlorine, as opposed to the muriaticum side. So, I mean, I think if your mind works that way and you want to see and parse out what specific rubrics might come under natrum and the salt, the natrum or the sodium side of it brings those characteristics to natrum mur versus what the muriaticum side of it. So it's really interesting and I think largely useful from a study perspective. And so again, like I said, if you make those changes here, so then you could, I'm not going to run that search. I have run that search, but it would take a long time. We would waste some time. But I could basically filter for a group or a remedy up here. And what it would do is it would filter your entire repertory module for that group or remedy. And then no matter which repertory or which chapter you opened, it would be filtered for that group. So if you were studying on a broader way, not just the one repertory, or even one repertory, but all sections, you could do that up here instead of doing it every time you open a section. Okay, so that is what I want to say about the filters in the repertory module. If we go to the filters in the reference library. So now I'm in your library of books and materia medica and journals and clinical information, etc. So the filters here are really useful. There are there are some preset filters, and then there are filters that you yourself can create. So again, you can see, I think I forget now. I don't know if it's, I think we have, Maggie, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 8,000 remedies in the program.
Yeah, I think about that, Roopali, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an incredible amount of remedies. And what I like to do sometimes when I'm looking at groupings or remedies grouping that I'm not as familiar with as I am with others, what is really helpful is to use the filter here. Um, for example, some of the most famous remedies in and I don't know, obviously, I don't know what everybody around the table, like, in this group today. I don't know how everyone works. I don't know if you generally think of remedies in groups. I find it really useful and intuitive, and it makes sense to me that a remedy that's in a classification like a natural history classification, a taxonomy, that they would have some commonalities with each other. And so if I can see that my patient, for example, needs a snake remedy, then I would consider all of the snake remedies as a group, and I would say, which snake remedy does this patient need? Because I see the snake qualities and pathologies in this patient. And so, for example, if you look at the two main subgroups in snake remedies are the crotalini and the elapide. So the most famous elapid remedies are nausea and elapse. Those are the two most famous, but there are others. And so what I would like, this would be really useful for me, is to come here and say, I don't know the others. So let's just type it. And you see the elapide group, and I would apply that. And now you see all of the elapide remedies. Um, so Bungaris, for polio, there's Dendroaspis, there's Elaps, of course. There's the spitting cobra, Hemacatus. This is the water snake, Hydrophis. So, there are so many, and you can really figure out which one your patients need. But if you have, I mean, you have to have them all in your head, but if you don't, then this is a great way. Even I know a couple of years ago, before I had my first real bird patient, I didn't know the bird remedies that well. So I would come up here and I would try and see which ones we have in the program. Um, and then try and read up on some of them because, here, look, I mean, there's an amazing amount of, and I'm sure that I could filter this down further if I knew my classifications in the bird families. I know some, but I don't know all. Then you could filter it down even further, but it helps you make sense of a huge amount of data that you have to narrow. I mean, if you know your remedy, then you can just type it here, obviously, and it will bring you to that. So, I could just type buteo here and it would bring me to buteo. But if I don't know and I'm looking more as a group perspective, then you could, use this filter here to narrow down your remedies that you're looking at. The other side that filter works is in books. And so when you come to this like stacked 3 book, you can click this and there are already some filters for groupings of books. So here we go, like provings, let's say, and I say, okay. And here are all the provings. In fact, I could also just come to remedies and apply a filter. And let's go here and I will put aves again for birds. Apply. Now I have 2 filters. I have the bird filter, which only gives me the bird remedies, and I have the provings filter. So now you can look at only the provings for each of these bird remedies, not anything else. And I have done that as well sometimes, like depending on the case. If I needed to go back to the original primary information, which is your proving, you can basically just do this and it will come up only with provings. So let's remove this filter and then we come back to books. So you can sometimes when you're filtering through and if you have a large library, it's really helpful to use some of these preset filters. The other thing that you can do is you can create a custom filter. What is the use of that? So if you know your materia medica well and you tend to prefer certain authors or certain books for your materia medica, you can create a filter that will allow you to filter your library just for those authors or those publications. And then when you look at your materia medica or you're searching through the materia medica for a remedy, you can just do that without going through everything and trying to find those books. You can easily just pull up your filter and then you'll be able to access your materia medica just for your filter of books. So I know, I think from a previous training, I must have created this, my favorite materia medica. And then you can just create this. So we can do that again. And you can, if you change your mind or you want to add, you have an edit button and you have a delete button. So I'm just going to delete. It's going to ask you, and we can delete this as well. And now we can remove this, can change that, get rid of that filter. Okay. So I'm going to say create, and then I can type anything that I want. Let's say books I want to read. I like that. Okay. And when I create that title for the filter, it brings me to all the books that are available in my program. And you can either just scroll and highlight certain books, or you can type them here. And when it does that, so I typed VERM for Vermeulen, it brought me, and then these are the two I always keep meaning to read, and I will say add those, and then I can take that out. And then I can put, let's see if Shukla is on there. And yes, Shukla is on there. So her crow proving and her seahorse proving, save. And sorry, my phone is, we go back in here and you see books I want to read. So I can click this and say, okay. And then the books I put in that filter are all here. And so you have easy access. Now, mind you, when you close your program, if you shut down your program completely, the filter from here turned on will go away. But you can always come back in here and turn that filter back on, and then you have your whatever books you have in that group will come on. And you can create different filters. Of course, as you might all know, you can always pin for up to 4 books at the top. And those will always be there at the top. But if you're creating groups of books as filters, then this is a very nice filter to have right here. Okay. Are there any questions, Maggie? Just
No, I think you've answered those ones. There's a question about patient management.
Okay. So I'll do my filter bit and then we'll go to the patient management question and we can take other questions. Maybe there are more around patient management. Okay. So then the third filter is obviously up here. And this is a filter that you apply on a search you want to run in the program, either in repertories or in reference library, or both. And so the useful thing about this is if you're again, it's useful for multiple reasons. I'm going to open the filter so you can see. Let me move this further up. Okay. So there are 6 filters that you have if you're running a repertory search. And if you're running a reference library search, there are also 6 filters. The filters are mostly the same. So there's a book or a repertory filter, author, kingdom, remedy, grade. And in repertories, you get section because that's part of the repertory. And in reference library, you get category. And category is the preset filters and any of your own filters that you have here. So let's say I had a filter, which I had previously, which is my favorite Materia Medica. These are the people that you like to go to because you think it's good, it's readable, it's stuff that you're familiar with from school or whatever. So you have your list of favorite Materia Medica. You could run a search and say, just search in the books I like. Don't search in the entire library. And you could set that. So it will show up. If you have created filters like that, it will show up in here in category. And you can run that search just for your favorite books or whichever books you're thinking of. So that is the sixth filter in the reference library search. This is, I mean, all these are useful, obviously, if you're, let's say, looking for specific rubrics associated with a remedy. Then instead of running the filter from the repertory module, let's say you're looking for the fear rubrics for a particular remedy. You can apply, let's pick pulsatilla because it's a little bit fearful. You can just do pulse, and that brings up the filter, the remedy filter. And this is a shortcut for applying a filter. But if you don't want to do that or don't know the exact abbreviation for the remedy, you can still type pulse and it comes up as an option in addition to like other ways that you can, use that filter. So I can always choose this and you see it becomes blue. Alternatively, you can come here.
Roopali, just to say that you're putting a full stop after pulse, isn't it? That's how
Yeah.
you're.
Yes. So an abbreviation for, if you want to put an abbreviation for the remedy in order to make it active, there's always a period after the abbreviation. So we know this. I mean, wherever, even in writing or when we write, the abbreviation always has a period after it. And if you want to activate that without bringing up this screen or that pull down that pop-up menu here, remember you need the period. I want to run that only in the repertories. So I can come here. I'm not going to run that as a reference library search, and I will take off the click to the left of the here. I will take this off. I'm going to run this as a repertory search, and I want to see the fear rubrics only for pulsatilla. So I can come to remedy and I will type pulse. If I type PULS, it's going to show me all of these other pulse remedies as well. So if I put the period there, it immediately takes me to the pulsatilla abbreviation. And it's just faster. And so I'm going to say apply. And again, you see the filter button goes pink or red or purple, whatever it is that you see on your screen. I'll take off the reference library portion of the search and just do a repertory search. When I click the search button, fear as a rubric comes up in all of these chapters and of course all the other repertories. So in order to actually make this an even more defined search, I could have chosen a chapter and said, show me only the mind rubrics. For example, there's fear rubrics in stomach and female. And so, I mean, I would think it's useful, but it's not really a fear rubric because this is an aggravation. These are most of them might be modalities. So what I could do is run this search. I realize I now have too much information and some of it is not what I was looking for. Then I can either, again, I can filter using a shortcut here. So I could just type mind and then say section. You'll see mind. Whenever a word goes blue in the search bar, that means it's a filter. This is a shortcut to a filter. If you want to use filter box, the filter icon here. So let's look at this. It should still say pulse here. So I'm going to clear everything. You see the pink button went away. And so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do pulse. And then I'm going to go to section and I'm going to say mind. And then I'm going to say apply. I'm just going to check and see if both those things are in there. So remedy, pulse, section, mind. So both of those things are in there. And I'm going to run the search again. Now, if you want to keep your old search because you might go back and check some of these things, maybe in generalities, there is a fear rubric you might use. You can keep this search. And if you press the plus button now, it will set it up as a new search. And that's your old search. And now you see that only the mind rubrics for fear come up. And they're all pulse rubrics. And you can even see what the grade of the rubric is. And here you go, all of the pulsatilla fear rubrics. That's a lot of fear. And that's really useful. But you can even, like, if you're looking, let's say fear within 3 words of dark in the same remedy, and I'm going to reset that filter, in the same remedy as constipation within 2 words of chronic. And we will run this as a reference library search and not a repertory search. The reason we run this as a reference library search and not a repertory search is because there is no rubric in any repertory that combines fear of dark and chronic constipation in one rubric. That search will never come up in a repertory. So that's why we run this as a materia medica search. Let's say in the same remedy as urination to involuntary. And so that is basically, I've picked, let's say, 3 main characteristics of my patient that I think are very specific and unique to the case, and I'm looking for remedies. With any remedies that come up, any mentions in the materia medica that have fear of dark with chronic constipation and involuntary urination. And so I'm going to run that. If I click this, it's going to override my last search. So I always click the plus button. And you see there's 80 remedies that come up from the materia medica. Now okay, let's open another clipboard. And I could just put these on the clipboard. You see, I've created now a rubric. This is a custom rubric of fear of dark, chronic constipation, involuntary urination, all in one rubric. When I go here, you see I have my 80 remedies. I think 80 remedies is still super hard to figure out. And you can see that there's a bunch of remedies that are grade 4 remedies for that search. That's still a lot of remedies to look at and figure out which ones fit your patient. So I always work with groups. I have some idea of which group this patient is, which group of remedies this patient needs. I see the first remedy is apis. So you know what? Let's filter it for insects and see which insect remedies come up. So now once I run this search, I see there's a good amount of remedies. It's not close enough. Actually, we could even just filter this for animal remedies. And so I'm going to reference library. I'll do kingdom. And let's see. Here we go. Animalia. Apply. And now we can run this search again and see how many remedies come up. And now only 12 remedies come up. So there are only 12 animal remedies with fear of dark, chronic constipation, and involuntary urination. So that to me seems much more reasonable, especially if I'm convinced that it's an animal remedy. And then I can put this in the clipboard. Oops. So we won't do that. Let's do this. And now I have those 12 remedies only to consider for these rubrics, or this custom rubric. So you can see, I mean, I could put these rubrics. I could look for fear of dark in the repertory, look at chronic constipation and urination involuntary, and create a clipboard. But this is so much faster to do that. And you get your remedies, and I filter it because I think it's an animal remedy. Because I work in groupings, I probably have some idea. Animal groupings is still very large. So there's mammals here, there's insects, there's snakes, there's some nosodes, there's sea remedies, a lot of groupings. Um, and so this is what this is really useful for, is to narrow things down if you're looking for a particular subsection of rubrics, like I showed you, the fears of pulsatilla, um, or just maybe even pull up chronic constipation and see what are the remedies in grade 4 that come up for chronic constipation. So you can really pick and choose and define the data that you're looking for and use your filter buttons to pull up that data and then see what remedies come up and how good the match is. And it might still, the stuff that comes up, for example, here, where we ran the mind rubrics, the fear rubrics, it might just be because you want to pick 3 or 4 rubrics and put them on the clipboard. And so this kind of search could just be like a precursor to building your clipboard, and building your analysis. This search, which I ran towards the end, is really a search here. This search is more to say I'm going directly to the remedy, but that's not always the kind of search you'll run. You can always run this kind of search and put rubrics on the clipboard. And this kind of search as well, even though it came up with 80 remedies, you can either refine it further, like I did, or you can put all 80 on the clipboard, and then you can add other rubrics on there. Um,
Rupali, there's another question here on filtering from Chuck. He's saying, let's say we want to build a rubric to act as a filter that contained all snake remedies. How would we go into existing rubrics that contain families and copy the remedies into a separate rubric to use as a filter?
Sorry, I got lost in there. Just tell me
Ah,
again what Chuck wants.
build a rubric that will
Yeah.
act as a filter that contains all snakes. So it's a snake rubric. It
Yeah.
just
So we can just from this rubric, from this complex rubric.
he wants to put all snake remedies into a rubric.
Oh, he wants to into a rubric. You mean, but how you can't, I don't know, what would be the purpose of that?
But in RepMaker, you couldn't do it here, but in RepMaker you'll be able to do it. You can create your own rubric and you can add whatever
And
remedy.
add whatever remedies you want, right? But what would be the rubric? Like, there's no such, I mean, a snake rubric is really, I mean, I would go to the QRep, and there is already a rubric in here of snake qualities, right? Snakes. So, and there are primary remedies. And so, but remember in this, let me turn these on so we can look at them.
Create a master rubric of a category that might not yet exist, build it from a combination of existing rubrics.
So those, I think those are two different things. One can be a rubric where you can call it whatever you want and put in whatever custom remedies you want to put in there. And then, but that would be a rubric that you could only add to your clipboard. So, for example, this snakes primary remedies rubric, I could put this on the clipboard as one of the rubrics. It's a rubric, it's not a filter. And so all of the snake remedies would be on here, including some other remedies that Jeremy thinks are snake-like or have some strong connection with snakes. So he's got tuberculinum in there, he's got Abel muscus, you can see. Um, but this is not, so this is a rubric, and he's created this rubric because these are all remedies that have a very strong connection with snakes, either positive or negative or identificatory, whatever. Um, that's a rubric. It would be one of the rubrics on my clipboard if I was looking for a snake remedy and I had other rubrics on there pertaining to the case, but I wanted to put this on. And I could always give this a 4 grade and say, prioritize that over everything else. Um, so this is a rubric. But there could be something else called a filter. So you can see over here, we have pre-built filters. And some filters, like Kingdom, for example, when you choose a filter here, this is based on natural history. But if you want to create a custom filter that, for example, has the remedies in here, for example. So it might have some snake remedies, some plant remedies, some mineral remedies in there, and it's a custom filter based on some criterion that you have. That is not possible at the moment, right now, in this program, in this version of the program that I'm showing you today. This is not possible. Um, Either to create a custom rubric with your own group of remedies that you could put on different clipboards, or to create a custom filter that you could filter your repertorization through. But it is possible in the new update that's releasing next week. Is it next week? Yes, in a week. It's releasing on Hahnemann's birthday. So the next update, and you could do these things in that version. Our plan is for the next training, which would be May 2nd, um, to have a big sort of demonstration of all the different modules that are coming in the new version and all of the capabilities that are possible. And what Chuck is asking for, a custom filter or a custom rubric, is possible in that version.
Mhm. He says, great, timely question. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, very timely. And if you come to the training next month, Chuck, then you'll be able to see how that works. Okay,
You want to
so
take Susan's question on patient
yeah, we
management?
can do the patient management question.
Um,
What is the patient management question?
um,
Actually, I will reload the program so we can just have a clean program. And maybe keep the clipboards. Let's keep the clipboard. Okay,
okay, I have some questions when saving on a recently opened patient.
yeah,
Obviously, you have to open one of the last consultations. If not opened, I am asked several times in which way to save it.
yes.
I think what you're saying is she has a clipboard, but she has not yet opened the patient.
Yeah, yeah. So here's a clipboard. Actually, we have 4 clipboards here. They are not associated with any patient. So what I do is when I have created my clipboards, I generally at some point now in the middle, once I have some clipboards going already, that feel okay, I even if that's not the end point of my case, I stop in the middle and create a patient and save whatever progress I've made so far. And then at the end, I go in and save again. If it ends up being a long case, I might save 2 or 3 times. And I think this is good policy for everyone, even though if by some chance your program crashes or you lose the work, generally when you restart, like it did this time, it asks you if you had open clipboards, it says they weren't saved. And do you want to save them? So that feature is there. And generally, I don't lose clipboards now, but I still, it's something it's a habit I developed. And so I would also advise everyone, just, it's not fun to recreate a couple hours of work. So we go here, create new patient, and I'll put my own name in. And I say save. And then it will ask me generally which clipboards I want to save. It will highlight them all. Sometimes if you're in the middle of work and 2 clipboards belong to someone else, it'll figure it out and it might only highlight a couple of clipboards. So it's your choice. Make sure that you pay attention to this, especially if you have multiple clipboards open, and choose the correct clipboards. So I'll just say select all and I'll say save. And I will get this pop up here on the lower left saying patient saved successfully. The other way you know that it saved is you will get your previous session section open on the left-hand pane with the session showing up and the time of the session. Now you can see I still have this update and save as new button here. You should not pay any attention to these. If you already can see the session on your left, generally that case is saved. If you go in here and update or save as new, it's just, update won't do anything. It will just, resave it with a new time because I assume few seconds have elapsed. If you say save as new, you'll end up creating another session with the same exact data. So let's say I go back here and I want to add another rubric to this clipboard. Yeah, so I'll just put a live sensation. And now that clipboard has changed. And there's 2 remedies that pop to the top. Okay, now you have a choice of choosing. Let me come back here. Now you have, because you made changes, you moved forward, you can either update this session, which is still 4/4, April 4th, but now the time has moved on. You can update this session, and then at the end of it, you will still have only one session line with the new clipboards and the time change. Or if there's something very specific you did and it's important, you're going to make some notes here about what you did. Maybe you changed something and you're going to add it to your patient notes. You want it to be different from the first session that you saved because of some change in analysis. Then you're going to say save as new. So if I say save as new, it's going to ask me in that new session, do you just want the 4th clipboard that you changed, or you want to keep the whole history? And so I'm going to say keep the whole history and say save. And now you can see that I have a second session line with a new time and all 4 clipboards. You can tell that your clipboards are different because it's 5112. And if I go to the older session, it's 5111 because I added that one rubric. Once you do that, remember though, once you do that, you see the session lines here, you're done. I can close this and it's gone. The save and update or save as update or whatever it is, update, save as new. Those 2 buttons are going to stay live. They're not live because you haven't saved. They're live because it anticipates that you might now make more changes and those buttons are still there. So don't focus on those buttons once you have your session lines. here. So here are my 2 sessions for this patient. You can decide that this is more applicable. You can delete this session if you like. You can open the latest session, and here, I'm going to delete this clipboard. And I will delete the 2 middle clipboards. Now I only have 2 left. Now I can say save as new. And now I have a 3rd session line, but this one only has those 2 clipboards. So, and now I'm done. So I can either, now remember, this is the older, assume this was an older patient that I was working on that was open. Now you have all your patient tabs here. You can either close just the active patient, which is going to be the bright blue, or you can close the entire patient management system. It's fine either way. If you're going to work on another patient, you can just close this one. And now it's gone. All the clipboards are gone, sessions are gone. And this is the patient tab for like a whole new patient or another one that you might have had open. Does that answer your question?
Does that answer, Susan? If you have anything else, can you put it in the Q&A? Thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions or doubts around patient management or how to save?
No. Yves was asking again about the new update, and I'm just explaining. I'm explaining it will be next month. He'll go through the new features.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the update isn't out yet. It's still 7, 8 days away. And so I didn't think that it would be useful now. There is information out about it. There's information on the website and on social media. Um, if you want to go out and see what it is. There is, and I'll just give it, we have 3 or 4 minutes, so I can talk a little bit about it. Basically, we are doing, I would say, 3 different things. Okay. There is an update to the current program. So your current SHS is going through an update which will change the interface for some parts of the program, make it even better. The biggest one is in Kingdom Graphs, where those look much nicer. And there is some new functionality also available. This global search has been entirely restructured in the back and is more intuitive, more accurate, and faster. And then there are a couple of other things which I think we're working on the release notes. So everybody will get this for free, this new update. The second thing we're doing is we are calling the update Viva, and that will be the new name for the software. So we're not calling it SHS anymore. There are such big changes in the back end and in the front end, which that is the third thing I'll talk about. So the first thing is that your base program has gone to an update and some functional and interface improvements. The second thing is there are such substantial improvements that we're now calling it Viva. We love the name. It suggests the vital force, vitality, life. And that's what, I mean, essentially that's what homeopathy is about. So we're calling it Viva now. So now it's called Synergy Viva, the program. The third thing, which is as big, if not bigger, is that we are releasing 5 different functionality modules within Viva. So the Viva update is free for everyone. The 5 functional modules that we're releasing are payable. And those 5 modules are the first one, which I think we're talking about a bit more because it seems really exciting to everyone, is the AI assistant called Genie. And Genie is an AI assistant. If any of you are familiar with other generative AI software out there like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Dolly. I mean, there's a lot. Microsoft Copilot. Then it's an assistant that helps you get data, analyze, get rubrics easily. It'll find whatever you want it to find. And you don't have to craft a search like you have to do up here. You can just say, tell me the keynotes of Pulsatilla, and it will give you the keynotes of Pulsatilla. So that's number one. The second one is what Chuck was talking about, which is we are calling it Rep Maker. And so you can basically create rubrics, modify rubrics, delete rubrics. You can do custom rubrics. You can add your own clinical additions to any existing repertory. You can create a custom repertory from scratch. You can pretty much take your global search results and turn them into a rubric and add them to that repertory. So that is RepMaker. Number three is what we're calling NoteSync. And that is your ability to take any notes that you have ever created or have access to and put them in the program and make them searchable. So your seminar notes, if you have a proving from somewhere, anything that you have, you can put it in the program as part of your reference library. So in here, it will show up as a book in your reference library. And when you do searches, it will also search your books that you added. So that's NoteSync. That's huge. The fourth one is something that we're calling Deep View. Not to be confused with the DeepSeek, which is another generative AI module software. And Deep View is basically for those homeopaths who really like to analyze and look at the statistics on various rubrics and remedies. Like I was saying, maybe looking at natrum versus muriaticum and how many animal remedies are in the Forsaken rubric, or like different deep work around rubrics and remedies. And then the fifth functional module attached to Viva is Smart Reader. And it is the sort of the same functionality that a Kindle gives you, which is to make notes in the text, highlight the text, interact with the text, save all that. So if you're, reading a book and you have thoughts about some of what you're reading, you can make notes just like you would do in a physical book. And so those are the 5 different modules that come in Viva. So those modules will be payable. You don't have to get all 5. You can choose which ones will work for you and just get those. And the base update, which improves the existing features, that is free and goes to everybody that has SHS currently. And we're going to showcase that next month at next month's training. Okay, so we are at time. Unless there's any questions that came up.
No.
Okay, good. So thank you for attending. I hope that was helpful to you. If you have any questions for future trainings, including case-related questions, please write to us either at Maggie, Maggie, at synergyhomeopathic.com, or Roopali, Roopali, at synergyhomeopathic.com. We'll be happy to, answer them. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.